Well, speaking of booking advice, Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. Hi, Jim and Brian. My name is Tony Khan, and I have a question about booking wrestling.
Well, Tony, we'd be happy to answer your question.
Knowing that rematches are frowned upon by the average wrestling fan, and they need to be justified, of course, I wonder your ideas and experiences on how to justify rematches. You can't build a feud without having a few rematches, so how have you kept the product from being stale where every feud plays out in a similar fashion? What makes a good, fresh feud, and what are some of your favorite feuds from the past?
Good Lord. We could be here for 3 days, but
maybe leave out that last part.
Well, yeah, but also, we could be here for 3 days just unpacking and breaking down the psychological differences in the way that people used to watch wrestling, the way they do now, the way that people used to perpetrate wrestling, the way they do now. Wrestling, the single most bizarre statement that I've ever heard made probably is the phrase, wrestling fans frown on rematches. If there's probably one statement that could take into account whatever style of wrestling you like, or whether you want it to be the phony, kooky, wild, funny, or you want to be the Sarah whatever, no matter what style of wrestling you're into, the idea that fans frown on rematches is the most bizarre and completely opposite reaction to anything in the wrestling business from the previous 125 years that I've ever heard of. The wrestling business was built on rematches. The most profitable, the biggest gates, the biggest landmark historical matches, everything has been rematches. The original founding fathers of pro wrestling were smart enough to realize that, especially in those days, but actually especially now too, you'd have 1 million wrestlers, but you'd only have a handful that were at the top, that were box office draws, that were not only the best wrestlers for a shoot, which meant something back then, but also were the biggest draws. And as shooting ability has lessened in importance, the drawing ability still remains, and it's still, honestly, there's only a very few handful at the top that are major draws just when you put their name on the card. And in whatever period, as Sam Muchnick even said that one time, he said, the only 3 draws were Buddy Rogers, Andre the Giant, and my God, who else did he say that when he would put on a card that with the Londas, their name would instantly jump the house regardless of what they were doing. Everybody else had to be in an issue, had to be going for a title, had to have a personal grudge, whatever the case. So the idea that fans frown on rematches is just indicative of that the last 15, 20 years, since everybody knows everything and they're all smart and they just want to see different car wrecks. They don't want to see the same car have the same wreck. They want to see a different car wreck. They've taken the fucking juice at the box office off of rematches and programs for 100 years. The biggest gate usually that guys would draw when they were in a rivalry in a program with each other was their last match, the blow-off match. And it could be in the monthly territories, in Madison Square Garden. Vince Sr. would bring a top heel in. He'd get 3 shots in the Garden. Disputed decision, Bruno or Pedro or whoever wins. That's the way that went. In the weekly territories, I've talked about this. Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee did either 13 or 14 weeks in a row in Memphis in the summer of 77 and sold right at about 100,000 tickets in that less than 4-month period in the same building. Jerry Lawler and Jimmy Valiant went 13, 14 weeks. Programs in Florida, my God, or in Georgia went forever. How long did the Freebirds and the Von Erichs go in Dallas? Yes, there were 3 of each of them, but they had 6-mans, they had singles, they had tags, but it was still the Freebirds against the Von Erichs, rematch after rematch after rematch.
Through 88.
What the reason for that is because, again, from the very start of the wrestling business, they realized, well, we can make money on Gotch versus Hackenschmidt, but nobody else is as big as Gotch and Hackenschmidt. So Gotch versus Brian or Hackenschmidt versus Jim is not going to do the money that another Gotch and Hackenschmidt match would do if they have a disputed decision or there's some reason to bring it back. They didn't used to call it rematches in wrestling. They said, are you going to bring that back? Meaning if Jim's versus Brian on Tuesday night at the Gardens, is it just going to be a finish and you move on? Or are you going to bring it back? Are you going to rematch it the next week? Out of the disputed finish or decision, are you going to bring it back again? Are you going to put some stipulations to it? Whatever. That's the way you build a program. So the whole concept of pro wrestling has been to get guys over, then put them in an issue, then have disputed decision in the first match, which leads to a rematch, if not multiple rematches, where you make more money out of it. And the gate and interest, as I said, for the last match in any series, if you'd done it right, was the big one. That was the cage match. That was the hair match. That was the loser leave town match. That was whatever that was going to be the ultimate decision maker between who was the best man in this particular goddamn conflict. And generally, the people would come back to see match after match after match if 2 things happened. One, the finishes to those matches that they saw hooked them to where they wanted to see next week with the stipulation that would prevent that fluke from taking place. And secondly, and most importantly, if the guys had good matches, and not only good matches in the ring, but promos and interviews and their whole demeanor in this thing sold that they were serious about it, that it was a legitimate, important thing to them, then the people would get behind it and they would keep coming until the babyface won with no rebuttal. Babyface can win, but the heel gets heat afterwards. Babyface is still mad. Babyface could win by disqualification, but that's frustrating. He didn't prove he was the better man. Until the babyface won cleanly, 1, 2, 3, or by submission over the heel, you could keep the program going and the people would support it. Now, they just want to see goddamn so-and-so versus so-and-so, and then, okay, show me the next trick, because it's all meaningless. So that's what we've done as a business, as an industry. We have completely reversed the founding fathers of wrestling's inventions and innovations on how to draw money and made them meaningless. But no, I'm all fully in favor of rematches. And I can't imagine doing a wrestling promotion without rematches, because that's the basis of fucking wrestling.
Well, one of the reasons people have been talking about this is if you think of AEW and a lot of the big feuds or a lot of the big matches, there were never rematches. How many times did Cody and MJF wrestle? Once, right?
I know. It's a complete waste to go to all that trouble to get one match and then fuck FTR and the Bucks.
Hey, even the
Cody
Bucks
and MJF.
Even the Omega and Page Bucks match that I liked. It was one match.
I'm not going to argue with that, but I see where you're going.
Yeah, just one time. I mean, it keeps happening over and over again. And
you know why the people remember? Still to this day, if you are of a certain age or have searched the internet on a significant basis, people say, name a great tag team rivalry. Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express. Or not just to bring me into something, Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, Bobo Brazil and the Sheik, the Freebirds and the Von Erichs. You can go on and on and on with famous matchups, rivalries, however you want to call it, and they all wrestled hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Not only at TV, but on house shows that existed were a thing back then, night after night, on pay-per-views, on big show, whatever the case, over long periods, not constantly, not every week for fucking 5 years, but you could leave it and come back to it. Leave it and come back to it because people still wanted to see it. That's how you establish those long-running rivalries and those memorable feuds and conflicts. You have multiple matches where multiple different things happen at the end to keep it fresh. That's the art of booking. The art of booking is not writing down matches. You can get a chimpanzee and put them at a typewriter. If you have an infinite amount of time, infinite amount of paper, sooner or later you get a Pulitzer Prize winner. But when you not only have to make the matches, but figure the finishes to interest people in seeing that match rematched, therein lies the art of booking. Nobody's doing that because they've trained the people. Well, you just see this once because it's all phony anyway, and then we'll do something else later. As a matter of fact, and I'll say this, and then I'll let you go. I'll let you move on. The people stopped hitting the ring because they were mad and started hitting the ring just because they want to be on television. About the time that people lost the ability to do these hot finishes that are meant and intended to stir people's emotions up, where they want to buy another ticket to see that match rematch so that that fucking guy that they like can get their hands on the motherfucker they don't like. That's where everybody was hitting the ring, on those hot finishes where the match was going to be brought back in a rematch. The people that hit the ring didn't want to wait for the rematch. They wanted to goddamn do something about it right then. That's the way you stir people's emotions up and get them to come back and see it a second time or a third time or whatever the case. What were you going to say?
I was going to say perhaps if Tony Khan listens to this and has a healthy breakfast in the morning, he'll start his day off right and fix some of these problems.
I got news for you. I don't think that's sugar that we saw on Tony's lips and nose, but nevertheless, folks, if you want to start the day off with a healthy breakfast that contains absolutely no cocaine or Adderall, then look no further than our friends at Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon, and folks, I'm not talking about taking drugs with your cereal. I'm talking about not taking carbs and sugar and junk with your cereal. And in this case, Magic Spoon has none of that. If you've been trying to cut down on the carbs, the sugar, and the unhealthy food, don't drink the protein shakes. Don't eat those granular fucking mud bars that's supposed to give you energy. Just eat healthy cereal like Magic Spoon. 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, only 140 calories a serving. Keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, but not taste-free, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, cookies and cream, and maple waffle. If they come up with any other goddamn flavors, I'm going to need an oxygen tank. But regardless of what those flavors are, you can build your own box, your own custom bundle with just the ones you like. And if you go to magicspoon.com/Jim to grab the custom bundle of cereal, use the promo code Jim at checkout. You'll save $5 off your order. $5. That's enough to get you laid in the Philippines, folks. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee, which you will not find in any alleyway in the Philippines. They don't care whether you're happy afterwards or not, as long as you pay the $5. But the folks at Magic Spoon will refund your money, no questions asked. Not for any blowjobs, but definitely for the cereal. So anyway, remember, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal, but not oral sex, at magicspoon.com/Jim. And use the code Jim to save $5 off. $5, it goes a long way. Farther in the Philippines, but still, it's important here in America.
That's right. And what a fine sponsor and what a fine cereal Magic Spoon is. Everyone should be trying it right now. Try Frosted.
Just snack on it. Just eat keep it. I've found if you just keep some of this cereal in your pocket and just reach in every once in a while and just pop some in your mouth, it makes the day go by quicker. In your pocket, in your pants pocket. Don't sit on it, because then it's hard to pick out in your hand. You have to kind of snort it through a straw, which goes back to what I was saying earlier.
Jesus Christ.
But
All right.
there's none of that on this cereal.